So Christmas has come and gone. I don't know about you, I sure got after it. I'm guessing you probably did too, and maybe you're feeling a little bit bad about things, maybe feel a bit guilty and kind of struggling. I want to make sure this is not the case, or if it is the case, I want to try to help you get past it, not only right now, but talk about some things to consider in the future. But it's one day, right? Like, there is nothing you can do in a day to screw everything up. I really want to make sure you understand that, because that's one of the biggest problems a lot of people have, is you'll be really strict for a long period of time, and then you'll have one day or even one meal where you go off plan, and then all hell breaks loose because you feel like you've screwed everything up, which it just does not work that way. So that's just the first step, is okay, it happened, now we just move forward from here. But you don't want to take one day, or maybe it was the whole weekend, or maybe it was a whole week, I don't know, but you just don't want to let that turn into something much bigger. Just enjoying Christmas alone is not going to make you gain a crap load of weight, but if you get down about it and you beat yourself up and you let that turn into something that turns into weeks or months, sometimes it literally takes years, now you're really going to set yourself back. Now, there's still nothing you can do to screw everything up to make it impossible, but you're going to make it a lot more challenging if you keep going rather than just go, okay, like, I had my fun. And that's one of the things you need to consider in the future if you're having a day like this, is just go, okay, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have fun, I'm not going to stress about it, I'm not going to worry, and I'm just going to get back on track afterwards. And I think one of the things you need to consider is there's a big difference between just having whatever you want and just enjoying yourself, and even if it's, eating until you feel really overly full and probably stuff yourself intentionally, there's still a big difference between that versus feeling like, well, I've screwed everything up, and what's the point? Now I need to stuff myself endlessly because this stuff is all off limits and I'm not going to be able to have it again. My diet starts tomorrow, and then you go back into being ultra restrictive. And the reason you're overdoing it is because of that mentality. If you have that mentality, then it's just going to keep happening over and over again. And not just Christmas, but really any kind of event that you have, whether it's, birthdays or anniversaries or vacations or holidays, or insert any event here, right? You're going to have that same problem. So if that's the case, step number one is definitely working on your relationship with food and no longer placing foods as off limits and deeming them to be bad. Again, I say it all the time, but I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. Food does not have morality. There's nothing to feel guilty about with food. It's just food. You didn't do something wrong. There's things to feel guilty about, like, cheating on a spouse. Yeah, you should probably feel pretty guilty about that. But having cookies, no, that's not something to feel guilty about. But yeah, a lot of it does come from just being overly strict with your diet. And I hear this all the time too, is like, okay, I'll get on a diet and I'll be super strict with things and just be perfectly spot on for possibly weeks, if not even months. But then one thing will happen. I mean, one slip up. You go out to dinner with some friends or whatever, and you decide to have a little bit of alcohol, and you have something that you wouldn't normally have. And now, just because of that one meal, you feel like everything is ruined and you just beat yourself up. And now all of a sudden it just turns into this free-for-all that lasts for weeks, if not months, and then now you've really set yourself back, right? If you have that mentality, there's a 0% chance of success. Like, there's just no way you can possibly be that perfect for the rest of your life, and anytime you kind of go off that plan, you're just going to go for a free-for-all. It's not going to work. So step number one, learn to include foods you like in moderation. I've got lots of videos on this topic, but if you do have that mentality, it means there's work to do with your relationship with food, and that's okay. Most people have this struggle. You're not alone. I know it can seem like you're alone with these struggles all the time, because honestly, we get most of our feedback from social media, right? We go on social media and you see what's going on out there, and nobody's out there posting about how much they're struggling with binging and struggling with body image and all this stuff. It's just highlight real stuff. It's all the good stuff that happens. A lot of times it's made up stuff. Like, you wouldn't believe. I've had multiple cases where I've talked to somebody who told me they were going through a divorce, and then literally the next day you see a post from that same person talking about how blessed they are to have their spouse in their life. And it's like, why are you making this up? It's like, it just frustrates me. Don't try to put something out that isn't even a reality. I'm going off on a tangent here, but the point is, don't trust what you see on social media. Most of it's not even true, or even if it is true, it's just a highlight reel. It's one small thing out of their life when the rest of it could be complete crap. So this is why I try to be open and honest when I'm struggling too, is because I want you to see that everyone struggles, and it's normal, and you shouldn't feel bad. So I literally think that more people have this struggle than don't have this struggle. Truly believe this. I mean, as a coach, I work with hundreds of people. This is why people come to me, right? It's like, it's a struggle. Anyway, another thing that could be an issue here is maybe you decided you were going to diet into the holidays. And a lot of people do this because you're going to be around family members. Maybe you haven't seen them in a long time and you don't want to be embarrassed about your weight and you want to look as good as possible. So now you go on not only a diet, but possibly even like a crash diet, which is going to make things even worse because you're just going to be even that much more hungry and restricted when you get there. But even if it's not a crash diet, you You diet into the holidays, and now it comes around and all this good food's around. And if you've been dieting, almost no matter what you do, you're going to be more hungry, right? You're going to feel a bit more restricted, and you could be setting yourself up to have a really hard time with things. And if that's the case, I mean, step number one is understanding that your family members are going to love you no matter what, no matter whether you have an extra 5 or 10 or 20 pounds on you. It's not going to change things showing up a little bit leaner. They just want to see you and they care about you, not what kind of shape you're in. And this is just really good advice in general for anything, right? Like, instead of always dieting into vacations and reunions and holidays and whatever else, if you do that, you're just constantly dieting on and off, and this is just crashing your metabolism and making it nearly impossible. Whereas if you just took a more sustainable approach and didn't always stress out about it, you'd put yourself in a better position and eventually get where you want to be and just be able to keep that, versus constantly feeling the need to just, diet for this, diet for this, diet for this. It's just not going to end well. Now, on the flip side of this, you might be someone who didn't binge during the holiday and actually stayed perfectly on plan because you were so paranoid about it and you felt like you couldn't have any fun and enjoy yourself, and now you felt like you missed out, and you're sitting here regretting, like, man, I didn't have any fun on Christmas at all because I stuck to my chicken and rice and broccoli. And if that's the case, that's a whole other set of issues, right? Now, if you're okay with it, that's fine. You get to do whatever you want to do. There's no right or wrong answers, and sometimes we've got goals and we want to accomplish them, and if you're okay with it, great. But if you're doing that and then feeling bad about it, that's something else to work on too. That shows, again, on a different side of the scale, there's still problems with your relationship with food. But most people, like myself, get after it. Like, especially if my mom's in town, like she's usually here for Christmas. She wasn't this year, and she makes these just unbelievable chocolate peanut butter balls that it's like my favorite food in the planet. She brings these, and I'm going to town on all those bad boys. She won't be here this year, but I actually did pick up these. I don't know if you've ever had them. White chocolate covered, fudge covered Oreos. Oh my goodness. This whole box is probably going down on Christmas. Full disclosure, I'm actually recording this before Christmas, but I can already tell you after Christmas, I will say the same thing. I binged. Like, I will have gotten after it. There's 12 of them in here, 100 calories each, so that's gonna be 1,200 calories right here. I don't usually have this type of stuff because I actually have gluten intolerance, to be more specific, a wheat intolerance. I don't talk about a lot because I don't want people to feel like I don't have gluten because it's bad for you or something. No, it's just because if I eat it, my stomach gets wrecked. So these are gonna wreck me for sure. But the point I'm trying to make is I love Christmas. I love having all the fun foods and all the drinks and all the everything, and probably I'll actually get to the point where I feel like really full and overly, like, grossly full. I'm okay with it for that day. I'm not going to try to make up for it, and you shouldn't either. That's a huge mistake, is when you overdo it like that. Anytime, if you try to make up for it, it's just going to continue the pattern. What happens is you overdo it, you feel bad, you try to make up for it, now you feel even more restricted, and then you overdo it again, you feel even more restricted, and it feels like you're digging yourself such a big hole that you can't get out of, that eventually you just completely stop the restricting, and it's just constant binging. It's so important. If you want to stop the binge restrict mentality, you got to stop restricting after you binge. This is actually a big point of another video I'm going to probably hand you off to, that if you struggle with binge eating. The point is, can't screw it up. Just get back on track. So anyway, simple video today. Not going to be much editing. It's kind of nice to occasionally do a video where I don't worry about how well it's going to do and stuff, and just get out an important message out there. But like I said, I have a different video about why you tend to binge eat and how to get over it. So it'll go into more detail besides just this video, so you can check that out up here or somewhere around here. And hopefully you had a wonderful holiday, good rest of 2023, and Happy New Year.